Like, the best bowl game of the year is the Pop-Tarts Bowl so far. Like, it was the best game. It was the most intriguing, the most post-game intrigue. The ghost of strawberry Pop-Tart showed up. And then, of course, no defense was played in the first half. Much defense was played in the second half because Cam Ward wasn't playing. And then it was all about why Cam Ward didn't play. Palm Beach Kane is in our chat already. He was in the chat before the show even started saying, before you even start, Cam Ward was supposed to play the first quarter only, got to play the first half. Cam didn't quit. Mario wanted to see next year's starting quarterback. Palm Beach Kane, do you think we're one of those basic shows that was going to sit here and blast away at Cam Ward? Do you think we're stupid enough to think Cam Ward showed up at halftime and was like, I'm out? Do you think we're that stupid? I realize a lot of the discourse has been about that, but we are not stupid. So we know that Cam Ward didn't walk into the locker room and be like, I'm out, I'm done.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. First, I want to tell you, and I don't know if you still try to explain college football to your wife, because my wife
all the time when she asks.
Yeah, my wife does ask like once a month, and every time she asks and I go into the explanation, she goes, "This makes no sense. I don't care anymore." But part of it too is the explanation that college football is a culture and not necessarily just a game. Like, I think when people think you cover college football, they look at it from the perspective of like, well, who's playing, what time, when are you going to the games, who's making the playoff, who's the national champion. It's like, it's so much as I think it's as much about this function in pop culture as it is about the actual games. And one of those things every year, and this is a credit to the Pop-Tart situation, is that the Pop-Tart thing has become a thing, right? Yes. And I think you can make a case that no bowl game or no bowl game sponsorship has gotten more out of their sponsorship than Pop-Tarts, and kudos to them for like making it that way. Because if it was just the Pop-Tarts Bowl and they didn't do all this other extra grab ass, then it wouldn't have been that way. But anyway,
congratulations to Cinnamon Roll on your ritual sacrifice. Exactly. Excellent choice, Rocco Becht.
But like, I made this is a ritual sacrifice joke to my wife during nap time because we were watching this game together. And she goes, "This is the weirdest, most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I do not understand anything that you do." And it's hilarious because if you try to explain the charm of the Pop-Tarts Bowl to somebody who's not in the college football realm, they think it's the craziest, most insane thing they've ever seen. And I even called it a ritual sacrifice. And I said, we know Cole Kubelik, who was eating it. And she goes, "I can't do this anymore." And I got up and left. So anyway, we were watching this game during nap time. And as we were watching it, it was on mute. So when Cam Ward wasn't playing, I just thought in my head, well, good for him for coming out, breaking the record and playing in this game that he probably shouldn't have even played in to begin with.
So he also played beyond the breaking of the record. The breaking of the record happened in the first quarter.
Exactly. Yeah, he kept playing.
Yeah.
Andy, he played a half too much, right? Like, everybody who's upset about him not playing in the second half, what are you mad about? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's been 2.5 days and I do not get it.
I'm convinced that there's a significant portion of the college football fan base that just wants to be mad. Like, they want to be mad about something, and this gives them a thing to be mad about. And it's a convenient avatar because it's like, oh, you know, this didn't happen in my Pappy's day. Well, in your Pappy's day, the players were stupid and did not fight for their rights. So this is them actually taking part in this multi-billion-dollar operation that is college football. And yeah, Cam Ward didn't have to play a single down in this game. I see the people saying, "Oh, Cam Ward hurt his draft stock." If I'm an NFL team, no. He didn't hurt his draft stock at all. In fact, he helped it because he showed how much he was propping up Miami. It's like my main interest in this whole thing is not in Cam Ward at all. It has nothing, very little to do with Cam Ward. It has more to do with Miami in general and what happens next. And so here's the thing: the reason this has gotten so much chatter, the reason this has become such a major part of the discourse, is the way Mario Cristobal answered the question after the game. Because he said, we're going to keep those conversations private. Those decisions are made in private. And so I wrote a column at On3, and there's 3 plausible explanations for what happened here. Explanation number 1 is Cam Ward acted alone, walked in at halftime, said, I'm out. That doesn't make any sense. Explanation number 2 is it was mutually agreed upon that he was going to play a half, and then they were going to put Emory Williams in to see how he could do. That makes a lot of sense. It also makes a lot of sense that after losing 42-41 in a game where you were shredding Iowa State's defense and suddenly you couldn't do anything when you put the backup quarterback in, if you're Mario Cristobal, you don't want to admit to that. And I think that's probably what happened. He didn't want to admit to being part of that decision.
I think that's the plausible scenario. And I will say 2 things. One's kind of a joke, which is Miami kicked like a cowardly, awful field goal up 3, like inside the 5-yard line on 4th down. And
I knew you were going to say this.
Well, I was like watching this and I was like thinking, okay, your defense hasn't stopped shit, not just today, but since the calendar flipped this time a year ago. And like, this is the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Just go for it. Like, what? I mean, you wanted to put your quarterback in and let him play, like give him an opportunity to convert a 4th down. And like, I don't know. That's how I'm thinking. Maybe there's a secondary discussion to be had about whether or not the Pop-Tart Bowl is prestigious given the sponsorship now, and wanting to win it is like akin to wanting to win a BCS game back in the day.
Can we be real here, Art? This has been the best game of the postseason so far. There's a chance it could wind up being the best game of the postseason when postseason's over. This was a great game.
Is there now a prestige in capturing the trophy? As a result.
Panini. Visit PaniniAmerica.net to start your collection. These are the most collectible sports cards on the planet. They have all the NFL stars, all the college stars who will be NFL stars. I've got a pack of Panini Prism draft picks right here. So we got rated rookies in here. The last one of these I pulled a Julian Sayin rated rookie. Julian Sayin, we've talked about, do you portal a QB? Do you have a young QB developing behind your portaled QB? Well, Julian Sayin at Ohio State is the young 5-star QB working behind the portal QB, Will Howard. And the hope is that Julian Sayin will take over. So I got his card out of a pack of Panini Prism last week. Let's rip this pack and see what we get, because this is the one where we could get some good stuff here, Ari. We could get some autographs. There's an average of 1 autograph per in this, and I already know I got a good one. I'm looking at the back of this. So this is a rated rookie, Riley Leonard. You can watch him play in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia for Notre Dame. I love the rated rookies because I grew up in the 80s collecting the Donruss baseball cards. And just when you see that rated rookie, like Panini knows me so well. They sent me rated rookie socks, Ari. That's a hell of a pack, Ari. PaniniAmerica.net to start your collection.
And then second part too is just like you had to at least put them out there, right?
Yeah. Emory Williams?
Yeah. Like, I mean, like if you are going into because I wrote a column and you wrote a column, but we want to talk about yours first. But doesn't Miami have to know, like, if there's a shot here with this kid? Like, well, I mean,
so I mentioned that there were 3 plausible explanations, Ari. My third plausible explanation is the galaxy brain version of explanation number 2. So explanation number 2 is it was a mutually agreed upon. It was planned to put Emory Williams in the game. The third, like the galaxy brain version of this, is the coaches knew Emory Williams was going to do this and it was going to look like this. And it was a cry for help. It's the bat signal to any quarterback who may think about entering the transfer portal, either because they're still playing on a team that's in a bowl game, so they're going to have a few more days because the portal's closed otherwise, or who might enter in the spring window. That's them. That's them crying for help. Like, hey, we got nothing for next year. Please come save us.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm happy that we're on the same page, that neither of us are like Cam Ward. Like, there's nothing
I put very little thought into the Cam Ward part of it. When I realized I'll tell you exactly where I was. I was picking up takeout from our favorite local Italian place. And so I got spaghetti and meatballs. and my son got lasagna. My daughter went with minestrone. It was outstanding. But I'm watching it on my phone as I'm waiting for the order, and I have the sound turned down, but I see a shot of Cam Ward on the sideline. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. Well, they're going with Emory. They're going to Emory, and like I remember Emory starting against Clemson in 2023.
He actually played like 23.
Beat Clemson, did not play well in that game. He averaged like 4.5 yards per attempt, but was actually playing fairly well against then undefeated Florida State in the fourth quarter when he broke his arm. And so I was kind of interested to see him because I was like, well, this guy showed a little promise as a true freshman. So let's see what the kid can do. Interestingly enough, they roll for a touchdown on that first drive, but it was 10 handoffs. They went 71 yards with 10 handoffs. And
yeah,
his passing numbers were awful. They were terrible.
Yeah. So I remember watching the game on mute, and after Iowa State punched it in to go up by 1 with less than a minute left, the cameraman panned to Cam Ward on the sideline, who looked like he had that Cam Newton shaking his head ready to go look. And he was tossing the ball on the sideline. So I thought
he still has shoulder pads on. He was still in uniform, right?
Yeah,
he could have.
So as far as I remember, that definitely seemed like, okay, this could be a cool story of like Cam Ward gave the kid a chance to play, and then he comes in to the end, because I do think they would have scored or at least kicked the field goal if he would have come in on that last drive, based on what we saw in the first half and based on what we saw in the second half. But that would have been a cool moment, and nobody would be talking about this, I think, even if Emory would have gone down the field. Because I think that the Cam Ward discourse is in 2 buckets here, Andy. One is non-Miami fans who don't care about the state of Miami football going into next year, who just want to scream about a player not playing. And then the other half is Miami fans who are probably terrified about what's around.
Which is the way more interesting one. Like I went on the Cane Sport message board after the game, and it was really interesting because like there was a post from before Christmas, somebody talking about how Emory Williams was looking in practice, and it had gone 4 pages before the game even started. And I was like, okay, this is very interesting because this is a debate that the fan base has been having internally. And I also remember last week, I guess 2 weeks ago, when John Mateer entered the portal. So John Mateer is the quarterback who replaced Cam Ward at Washington State. He was awesome this year. Washington State obviously getting picked apart. Their OC was hired by Oklahoma. Their head coach was hired by Wake Forest. John Mateer followed his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, to Oklahoma. Miami thought they had a chance at him. They didn't really. He was always going to follow Ben Arbuckle. But we should have known then that Miami was worried. And now you look at it and it's like, oh, all the potential real difference makers at quarterback who went into the portal, they've already found their place. And it really wasn't that many. I mean, I'm looking at it like Mateer, Darian Mensah from Tulane, who wound up with former Miami head coach Manny Diaz at Duke. Maybe Jackson Arnold, but we don't know because we really didn't get a good eval on Jackson Arnold with what Oklahoma had on the offensive line at receiver. Like, that's it.
Yeah. So I feel like the position that Miami's in, and now this can go into what I wrote today, which is Miami's quarterback situation a cautionary tale of being overly reliant on rentals from the transfer portal? So there's 3 questions that Miami has to face right now. One, can the Hurricanes go into next season with Williams leading the way? Which I think that after watching a half of football, I don't know how much evidence or how much you take away from
also,
that.
Also, their defense is bad and must get better. Like that is the underlying thing too, because if you have a good defense and a good offensive line, which they will have a good offensive line, you're not as worried, but you should be terrified now.
Yeah. These aren't the only 3 questions. Let me be clear. These are the 3 that come after the game.
Yeah.
The second question is, can a program in general be successful long-term by continually renting quarterbacks out of the portal year after year? And then the third is Miami the cautionary tale of what happens to a program that's overly reliant on finding its quarterback in the transfer portal? Because as you know, Andy, and as we've talked about quite a bit, the transfer portal has given teams a secondary chance or ability to fill out a roster if they don't recruit out of high school well. And I think that there has been this push and pull, this debate about what's prudent in terms of how to go about building your roster. Like, what percentage do you do high school? What percentage do you do portal? And there have been multiple programs, Miami being one of them, Notre Dame being another, who have been reliant on taking a quarterback year over year in the portal. And Miami, is an interesting situation because Mario Cristobal is going into year 4 next year, right? They win 10-2, or they won 10 games in the regular season. And I think that you could say that this was a beautiful proof of concept showing that they're on the right direction year. Like, even though Miami didn't make the playoff and they're disappointed that they didn't make the ACC championship game after losing to Syracuse, I think that, like, if you're a Miami fan, you would have taken 10-2 coming into the year. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
So now you're going into a transcendent year 4, and you might think, okay, well, we'll just go get somebody in the portal again. We have money to spend. You know, we're a fun place. Miami's gorgeous. You know, all the things that Miami has to sell, and we're about to go over the hump. And it's funny enough because Notre Dame took a transfer in Sam Hartman last year, and then they took another transfer at the quarterback position in a year where they're more equipped to compete, and now they're in the playoff. So, like, I think in concept, like, if they would have gotten John Mateer, we would be like, oh my God, Miami's going to make the playoff next year. But there's danger in that, Andy, which is if you don't get John Mateer and his offensive coordinator goes to Oklahoma, and by the way, Oklahoma is also very excited about the need, both financially and roster-wise, to get a quarterback to come to their team. So if you don't get him, where does that leave you, especially considering the fact that we are 2 years away from New Year's Day and all the spots have been taken up? Like, you have players who didn't play in playoff games and left their teams early because they were afraid they were going to miss out. Like, if that's not a sign of the climate, then I don't know what is. So what we do understand about college football, Andy, is that weird stuff happens all the time. And, like, people enter the portal when we don't think they're going to, or circumstances change. Maybe in the spring, somebody's going to show up that we're not considering. Maybe Quinn Ewers will be at Miami next year. I don't know. And we'll talk about some of the options, I think, as we go down the list. But as it sits right now, don't you have to criticize the head coach who has been there for 3 years for never signing a top 150 quarterback that could play? Because, like, Notre Dame did it perfectly, right? Notre Dame took Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard back to back, but also, Andy, they also got CJ Carr, I believe a 5-star prospect in the On3 industry rankings in the 24 class. And taking the highly rated quarterback in this day and age isn't just he's definitely going to have to play. What it does is it gives you options. If he comes into the program and develops behind your transfer really well, then you feel really good about the well. And I will say
they felt good about Emory Williams, who was in their class of 2023. Remember, they were going to have Jaden Rashada and Emory Williams come in. Rashada flips to Florida. They weren't even that sad about it, which we understand why now. But
Andy,
they liked him, but they were trying to do this. They just didn't do this. It didn't work out.
Right. But
that's also their fault because the coaches get paid a lot to do it right. Yeah.
But at the same time, too, how much time, and this is a secondary conversation, but I think it pertains very much so to this. How much time does a coach get, or how much time do you think is rational for a coach to need before they can identify the players on their roster? Like, this whole, like, has to play the second half of the Pop-Tart Bowl because we got to see what he looks like. It's like, shouldn't you have a better feel on whether the kid can play, whether or not he plays in the second half of the Pop-Tart Bowl?
I'm going to say something mean, Ari. I'm going to say something mean.
To me, or
he was probably lighting up Miami's defense at practice because Miami's defense is bad.
Oh, yeah. I know, but I still think that you have to have a feel. Like, the thing that I cannot get over is, who do we believe, and I think I've said this to you in the past, but I'm going to say it again. Who do we believe to be the best quarterback mind in the NFL right now?
Well, Kevin O'Connell probably right now because he's resurrected Sam Darnold's career, but
Mike Shanahan would be the correct answer, right?
I don't know if we feel that way, right?
Okay, well, let me ask you this. If it's not him, he's in the top 3. Okay, he's one of the coming into the year, we viewed him as one of the best offensive quarterback minds out there, at least offensively. And they took Trey Lance in the top 5, and they took Brock Purdy.
Traded up. If you played the game of what they gave away to get Trey Lance, like they could have drafted Micah Parsons with that pick if they just kept the pick.
So that isn't just the part, though, that's important. People make bad draft picks all the time. It's really hard to nail a top 5 pick at the quarterback position. The thing that keeps me up at night is that Brock Purdy, who you could buy their rookie card from Panini for 41 cents before he played, came into the game out of necessity as a result of an injury. And ever since he came into the game out of necessity because of an injury, he has now turned into one of the 10 most brightest young quarterback stars in the sport. And I understand that reps are broken down very lopsided in practice when you have your franchise quarterback and you have Mr. Irrelevant on your team. But if the greatest mind in college football, I mean, in the NFL, or one of the 5, I'll even say, best minds in the NFL can identify who the best quarterback on his own roster is, then how does anybody do this? Like, I just, and like, now he played like Brock Purdy, a person who was really good in college, but also made really terrible plays in college, is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for his age. So the question is, even if he was lighting up the practice, like if you are getting paid whatever Mario Cristobal is getting paid, don't you have to have a better grasp? Like, did he need that half of football to see what he had? And if you didn't need that half of football, because it's my opinion that you're getting paid way too much money to need that half of football to know whether you can build your entire program around a guy, then why weren't they more active in the portal earlier? Like they went, I don't know if I'm like not seeing this right, but didn't it kind of feel like they were all in on Mateer and nobody else? Like, were they involved with any other quarterback?
And they didn't, like, I don't know if because they got Cam Ward that they thought they were going to get Mateer, definitely because it worked out so well for Cam Ward coming from Washington State. But like that's not reality. Like, everybody knew Mateer was following Arbuckle. Like, everybody knew he was going to Oklahoma. So yeah, it's very weird. And like Mensa's thing went quick. Now I don't necessarily believe he's making what he's reported to be making, but I think he's making quite a bit at Duke. So maybe that just got wrapped up quickly.
Whatever. If that number is real,
Salter went to Colorado.
If that number is real for Mensa,
that's Banana Land. Banana Land.